Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. High-level investigation launched after 3 wards escaped from the Metcalfe Street Juvenile Remand Center. COVID-19 vaccination task force pushing for introduction of vaccination or test programs in some public sector entities. And later in sports, Sabina Park confirmed as host venue for Ireland's tour of the West Indies next month. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. Up first, a high-level investigation is underway to determine how 3 wards escaped from the Metcalfe Street Secure Juvenile Remand Center in Kingston. The wards were discovered missing this morning. A release from the Department of Correctional Services said the breach was discovered by a correctional officer during a regular check at the isolation section. It was revealed that the ventilation area made of concrete was destroyed. Now, TVJ News was informed that it was reported to the management of the facility that the wall in the isolation area had been compromised. Police are now investigating. 80 wards are housed at Metcalfe. To other news, despite government hesitance, the National COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force is pushing for vaccination or test programs in some public sector entities. The recommendation is among a list from the task force set up in September to brainstorm ways to combat vaccine hesitancy in the population. Kimon Witter has more.
In its second report since being set up, the Professor Gordon Shirley chaired task force noted that new vaccinations are averaging only 2,000 a day. 677,000 people had received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine up to Friday. The task force believes a program requiring workers in select areas to get vaccinated or get tested on a regular basis is needed amid the impending threat of a fourth wave of COVID-19. It says legal advice suggests the courts are likely to rule that such policies to protect public health are demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. It adds that the advice also indicates that once policies are properly designed and correct procedural steps are taken to implement them, it is very unlikely that a judicial challenge would succeed or that it would prevent their implementation. The task force says the government should ensure the details of the policies are reasonable and give due consideration to varying circumstances, such as exemptions for those unable to be vaccinated for medical reasons. In the meantime, the task force argues that given the minimal risk that the fully vaccinated pose to the health system, it is not equitable to apply the same restrictions for them as for the unvaccinated. It says the government should facilitate events accessible only to the fully vaccinated. It further states that to make the verification process easier, the COVID-19 vaccine authentication system should be implemented as early as possible. The task force says the necessary infrastructure for citizens to access certificates and for host organizations to verify these certificates should be established urgently. The current projection is for this to be launched by the 3rd week of December.
As the world continues its fight against the coronavirus, at least one individual has labeled the battle against COVID-19 as a world war. O'Shane Masters explains why.
Speaking at an awards function for 32 frontline workers in St. James last evening, leadership specialist Dr. Liz Longsworth says the fight against the respiratory illness COVID-19 can be looked at as World War III.
Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, this is World War III. This is the 3rd World War that so many people have been predicting. This is our 21st century war, which in so many ways is much more intense and deadly than World War II.
She says what makes the situation even more dire is that the war is being fought with an invisible opponent.
It is one who is able to change shape and form like the Transformers that I'm sure some of your children play with.
According to the World Health Organization, up to December 3, 263.5 million cases of COVID-19 were recorded worldwide with over 5.2 million deaths.
Like the world wars of the past, this enemy has taken lives, it is threatening our freedom, it has led to our economic decline, increased insecurity, and tremendous fear.
In the meantime, Dr. Longsworth is calling for some level of intervention for frontline workers who have been battling the virus, whether mentally or otherwise.
I remember earlier there was a call for special hospital care for the treatment of healthcare workers who fall ill of COVID. And I think that that is something that we can consider, because we have seen in other societies after or during wars where hospitals were set up for war veterans and their families, mostly to give special care, but also for training in that special field.
Shane Masters, TVJ News.
In the meantime, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the public hospitals are in a better position to manage the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Tufton says the experience from the previous surge in cases will assist hospital management and staff to prepare. However, he says Jamaicans will need to take a holistic approach toward their health to minimize hospitalization in the event they contract the virus.
We have to begin as a people on an individual basis to start taking better care of ourselves. And I know it's a simple message, but the statistics out of COVID tells us that those who have suffered the most, including passed on because of the COVID virus, are those who were already sick, meaning they had some sort of lifestyle-related diseases, premature illness, diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And all of that can be dealt with some simple life lessons. So one of the big lessons from COVID is that we must be holistic in how we approach public health.
Meanwhile, the health minister says the COVID numbers have been trending down, proving that the measures taken have been yielding results.
If you look at the last 7-day average of positivity rates, we are hovering around 5%. That's the global sort of benchmark numbers. Remember, we were at the peak at 50%, which means that less persons are being infected. If you look at hospitalization, it's coming down. If you look at the reproductive rate, it's below 1%. And again, having gone through this cycle 3 times, we're getting better at it, although we would not want to go through.
Still on COVID, 67 new cases of the virus were reported in the last 24 hours from 952 samples. This brings the total cases to 91,536. The positivity rate is 7.7%. Meanwhile, 137 people remain hospitalized with the respiratory illness. 10 people are critically ill, while 14 are severely ill. There are now 600 active cases. The death toll remains at 2,410. 63,096 people have recovered from the virus. This includes 154 in the last 24 hours. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. The government has officially introduced HIV self-testing kits in Jamaica. But is the initiative a good idea? Sandy Williams explores in this special report.
Several people have welcomed the introduction of HIV self-testing kits in Jamaica. The HIV self-testing kits allow people to test themselves in order to detect antibodies of the human immunodeficiency virus HIV, which causes acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS.
Well, I think it's a good thing because, many persons will tend to shy away from the doctor. So, testing in the privacy at home, that would be a really good thing for the individuals who would have contracted the virus.
It's more safer because if, say, for instance, I go there and have unprotected sex, then I know I can test myself to make sure I'm all right before I go to somebody else or so.
That disease is really devastating, and indeed it creeps up on the persons so much. They need to be more aware of the dangers of that disease and take precautions against it. So that initiative is most welcome.
They believe the introduction of the kit could increase the number of persons getting tested for HIV due to the perceived level of privacy it would guarantee.
Because enough persons don't really want to go out there, go do it where persons can find out them status, you get me? So it would be a good thing still.
That's a vision for the world. Yeah, and very private and confidential. No one have to know about it.
The test results are ready within a 20-minute period without having to send samples to a lab for analysis. But people are concerned that this may have unintended consequences for the population.
The drawback to it would be though, when persons find out that them have the virus and thing, if them are going to share it with other persons.
In that case, no, that's the thing. Because if a person is going to do that, I guess, no, God have to talk to them conscience on that one.
But those people now, that would be negligent still, but I would advise everyone that if you would get tested personally and you find that you are with the virus, protect others, not only yourself. We are not living for yourself.
Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn is the State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
I understand that, but I think persons, what we're trying to tell people now is to make sure that if it is that they do test positive, that they seek care, because it's no longer a death sentence. And, persons are looking at laws to make sure that persons can't go around just willy-nilly and just spread the virus, knowing that they have the virus. However, I think the best thing for persons to do is to seek care as soon as possible, and that's what I would recommend them to do.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
To other news, the Transport Authority is stepping up its efforts to get more operators who use bikes and cars for commercial purposes regularized. General Manager of Operations at the Transport Authority, Ronald Anderson, says the authority has been working with the police to carry out a number of operations across the island.
Our principal focus areas initially was on operators who in the food and services industry are popularly known as the hens. We have estimated roughly about 2,000 of these operators, primarily bikers who have been operating island-wide through our initial assessment. This has even increased significantly since the COVID pandemic. We are urging these operators to get themselves formalized.
He also has a word for people who are using their private vehicles to engage in commercial activities.
They require to have a commercial carrier's license, and if they are engaged in their personal private enterprises, they are also required to have a private license. This drive currently on now is more of a public education, where the main aim and focus is just to, once we bring it to your attention that you are operating in a particular illegal way, then we offer you the assistance where you can formalize and get the respective license that we so advise.
Time now for the top regional and international stories with Sandy Williams.
In regional news, the Barbados-based Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO, says it had reached an agreement with the Canada-based e-learning courseware development company Velsoft to further advance the Regional Tourism Development Agency's virtual training program. It says as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, Velsoft will provide CTO access and hosting to its learning management system and manage the Caribbean Tourism Institute, the CTO's online campus developed by the Canadian firm. The new portal is an open online educational training and development learning center designed to provide affordable access to training opportunities for everyone who works or aspires to work in the Caribbean tourism and hospitality sector. On the international scene, ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to 4 years in prison, the first in a series of verdicts that could jail her for life. She was found guilty on charges of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules under a natural disasters law. Ms. Suu Kyi faces 11 charges in total, which have been widely condemned as unjust. She has denied all charges. She has been in detention since a military coup in February, which toppled her elected civilian government. It is not clear when or if she will be placed in prison. She is being held at an undisclosed location. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And it's now time for the Business Minute with Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the COVID-19 pandemic has reinforced the Caribbean's need to diversify the regional economy instead of relying heavily on tourism. Dr. Clark spoke on the issue at the Central Bank of Barbados Caribbean Economic Forum recently.
That should not be the sum total of our economic strategy. Our economic strategy has to be wider and broader and embrace other ambitions that help to reduce our dependence on tourism and to further diversify and therefore strengthen our economy and make it more resilient.
The Bank of Jamaica BOJ has advised that the cambio and remittance operating licenses issued to Alliance Financial Services Limited have been suspended until further advised, effective December 3, 2021. In a release on Friday, the BOJ said the suspension became necessary given the charges recently laid by the Financial Investigations Division on the principals of the company. Consequent on the suspension, the BOJ said Alliance is no longer authorized to conduct the business of buying and selling of foreign exchange. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have the Midday Sports.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Sabina Park will be hosting a West Indies Limited Overs contest for the first time in 4 years, as the Caribbean side will welcome Ireland to Jamaica next month. Cricket West Indies have confirmed that all matches in this tour will be played at Sabina Park. The tour comprises 3 one-day internationals and 1 T20 international. The ODI matches are slated for January 8, 11 and 14, while the one-off T20 is set for January 16. The T20 is expected to be the send-off game for Jamaican hard-hitting batsman Chris Gale. The last time Sabina Park hosted a limited overs game for the Caribbean side was back in 2017 against India. The last time Ireland played against the West Indies in a limited overs game in Jamaica was in 2014. The ODI series serves as points in the ICC Cricket Super League towards qualification to the 2023 Cricket World Cup. To football we go now, as 2019 Walker Cup champions St Catherine High will face 2019 Champions Cup winners Kingston College in Group C action of the Manning Cup this afternoon. KC are at the top of the table on 12 points, while St Catherine are third on 10 points. Kick-off is at 3 o'clock Jamaica time. In the other Group C contest at 3 o'clock, Papine will battle Woolmers. In other matches today, Jose Marti will face Dunoon at 1 o'clock, while at 3 o'clock St George's College entertains Charlie Smith. To Europe we go now, as Reggae Boys striker Shamar Nicholson scored a double for Charleroi as they blanked the Standard Liège 3-0 in the Belgian top flight over the weekend. The 24-year-old scored his two-timer in minutes 22 and 57 to push Charleroi up to 4th in the table. Charleroi are now 8 points behind leaders Union SG. Nicholson has now tallied 10 goals in 15 appearances this season at the club. This is Nicholson's best goal-scoring season since joining Charleroi from NK Domjale in 2019. Last season, he netted 9 goals in 33 appearances. Nicholson has 18 months left on his contract at Charleroi. And finally to England we go, as Everton will be looking to end their 8-game winless run as they host Arsenal at Goodison Park this afternoon. The Toffees are 16th in the table on 15 points, while the Gunners are 7th on 23 points. Kick-off is at 3 o'clock Jamaica time. Everton's last victory was against Norwich, which came back on September 25. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Giovanni, it is over to you.
Thanks so much, Simon, and no mention shall be made of that game between Arsenal and Manchester United last week. Congratulations, sir. You won, and I admit that.
Season continues, yeah.
That's it for the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.